So this is not, EV, alternative fuel, advanced technology, but something we've talked about many times in the past, and it's the changing face of transportation and mass transportation. And um, specifically, this is about Uber and Lyft. And we've been kind of dogging on Uber and Lyft in the way that they treat um, their contractors. And so a court in California has declared that Uber and Lyft can no longer refer to their drivers as contractors, that they have to be full-time employees or even part-time employees, but they have to be labeled as employees and not just contractors. Of course, Uber and Lyft are fighting this because the huge difference between contractors and employees, of course, is that employees come with benefits, and especially in California, whereas if someone's a contractor, they're pretty much on their own and the company doesn't owe them anything except some pittance for what they do. And we've already gone on many, many times on this show about how hard some of these drivers have to work in order to earn just a little bit of anything. And I think Casey knows this, in person, having been an Uber, right? You drove Uber?
Yep, Uber Lyft.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm reading a Barron's article here, and they reached out to Uber and Lyft, and they both said things like, this is preposterous, and they don't want to be employees. They want to be contractors, and they don't want the things that come with being an employee. Okay, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, like we've said many times on this show, is these companies get rich and rich and rich by exploiting other people's work. And you see the same thing with DoorDash and stuff, where people are just busting their ass to do their work, and they end up with, just a little bit, a percentage of something. And Casey, I figure you would be the perfect person to chime in on what are your thoughts on the reclassification?
Well, part of it, they also would then be required to do your tax withholding as well. But their platform is perfectly set up to allow you to be an employee that still makes your own schedule. Just hit the button and then just track the time, track the miles, all that still. And then now you got to send it off to accounting. It's one more step, but it's already going to accounting anyway to bill the customer and to pay your contractor. But the ability to have sick days and vacation days, they probably don't want anything to do with that. But in the Southeast, you can have no unions, no sick days, and they can find ways around all this. It's obviously depending on the state that they're operating in, as far as what the bare minimum is. But
right, but this is a California state. It's not nationwide, so this is just in California. Yeah.
Right. But do you think it could be precedent? Do you think that they fear that this could be precedent that could, employees can unionize, but contractors can't?
They'll certainly fight it wherever it comes up. That's for sure.
Yeah, they're going to fight it everywhere. But I mean, the disadvantage isn't that great, and then then the customers are more likely to not jump to a fresh competitor as they come up, because they know that, all right, these people are being treated fairly, maybe not great, but fairly, and so their conscience is clear. But if they see that this fails and then another competitor pops up that has the coverage area they need and good price and treats the employees as employees and treats them correctly, they'll jump.
I also wonder if it isn't also the liability question. Mm-hmm. Like, would they be more liable for accidents? Would they be liable for wear and tear on your personal vehicle? Mm-hmm. There's a whole can of worms that's going to open up. And I know some aspects of AB 5 affected screenwriter and TV writing freelancers, because it kind of all got put together as a blanket approach to these contracts. So I think that the AB 5, although I think it's very well intentioned, and I too have a lot of issues with Lyft and Uber and how it treats these contractors. And especially DoorDash, for whom, if you don't know, a lot of times DoorDash is a pittance if anything goes back to the restaurants, a pittance. Yep. So I have a lot of problems with the gig economy jobs market, but I think AB 5 was written a little broadly for what it needed to be to control. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch how this folds out, because we're headed towards gig economy, no full-time, no permanent kind of positions. We've been headed there for a long time. And it's going to be one of those questions that's going to be asked about things like UBI and how do we structure basic living stipends, and along with this kind of weird gigish approach to employment. We'll see.
Yeah, and that's going to keep coming up because, like you said, it's not just the business structure that's evolving for that. It's also, we've got AI coming in, sports finding that their columns are, if it's just a basic sports column, it's half the time now written by a computer. But you still have to treat your people like people. I mean, how can you have companies like Walmart, like Uber, like Lyft, that have employees that are working full time that are also on food stamps? You should be able to have the basic minimum wage that sustains life, and the basic conditions. If you have to go to the doctor, that shouldn't kill your income for the week because you had to take a day off to go to the doctor.
Well, for a lot of companies, they think employees are actually a liability.
Mm-hmm.
They are treated like an unfortunate necessity as part of the business. And I always remind people, if you go back and you watch Resident Evil, zombies were created to have a workforce that was tireless, didn't need benefits, didn't need pay, and didn't need to be fed.
Yeah.
And it's pretty typical of companies.
There's a reason a lot of people, we're not going to put them into one group, which we'll paint with a broad brush. Let's just say a lot of people don't like California because California tends to lead on a lot of progressive causes, whether it's emissions or labor law. We're an at-will employment state, but this is a step in the right direction. If your business model doesn't allow you to pay taxes or to treat your people well, if it's basically just there to sponge money off of existing small business and employees, or contractors, then really it's a shitty business model. I know people who've driven for Uber and Lyft and have done Uber Eats and DoorDash. And I want to tell you, all of them are super hardworking people, and not a single one of them made very much money.
Yep.
They're
Maybe
doing
they
it 'cause
start
they
you
have
off.
to.
Yeah, exactly. They start you off with the promise of big wages. Uber Black, it used to be a private limo service, and now it's Uber line, Uber pool, where it's like $2 a ride, and you share it with 3 different people during normal time when.
Well, but if they're not paying their drivers, why don't the drivers just stop doing that and go?
Because now the driver is hooked. They bought this car because they were making money, they could afford it, and now they have the car payment and the house payment, and they can't get out.
Yeah.
Patrick, money
In
is.
fact,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
they've even got like a little program where you can get a new car that and for a lot of people, especially in California, public transportation is not an easy thing to do. Especially if you have a desire to get anywhere or do anything. Because if you have to be in one part of SAC, you live there and you want to get to school and you have a kid or any responsibilities, you need a car. And you sign up for Lyft or Uber because you can get a deal on a car, and they tell you these numbers that you can earn, and you're going to earn money, and portion of your car payment will be paid for by doing it, and you sign on the dotted line, and suddenly you don't get to opt out because you've got to do this job. You need the money that's coming in to pay for the car. You need to get to A to Z in an easy fashion. And it is literally, I sold my soul to the company store, but now with fancy watches and smartphones.
It's I'll just speak to the people I know directly. I won't make generalizations. In most cases, they're not the primary earner in the house. A lot of cases, they had a car. So it's not like somebody went out and bought a brand new car and they're trying to make the payments. Although that definitely a lot of people did that, bought cars, especially electric cars and hybrids, hoping that this was going to be a profit center for them. A lot of them are working a lot of hours a week and not bringing very much home. Now, is that the difference between something and nothing? Yeah, in a lot of cases it is. Could they do better if they just got a real job somewhere? Maybe, but there's not a lot of those either.
Yeah. So if
Yeah,
this is
well,
just a side hustle for you, you do it a couple hours in the evening, 6 hours on the weekend, then it's not a big deal. But if it's your primary source of income, it certainly is a big deal.
Yeah.
yeah. When I started I had the Volts, and that did well. And then I ended up with the first Tesla, and that one counted as a premium car, so we got a premium rate. And then I went ahead and got the next car, and that one counted as a larger premium luxury car. And shortly after I got it, they cut the rates, and my wife didn't have a job anymore. So now that was replacing her job, and so that kind of left me on the treadmill until we got the offer for the first position up here, and then we moved.
Yeah.
That was to replace.
I don't know that describing it may be in many cases a side hustle, as it were.
It was, yeah.
But I know, like, one friend of mine has a full-time job, and she does this in addition to that because, hey, guess what? It's expensive to live here.
Yeah, that's true.
So this is something she can do in conjunction with her full-time job that helps make the nut every month.
Yep, it's a flexible schedule. It's just that they keep cutting the rates.
Yeah, I mean, this is the classic sort of VC bait and switch. Get into the market, get everybody into it, and then hopefully
early on they could pay well because it was all VC subsidized.
Right, and none of these companies have ever made fucking money. Not one of them. What does that tell you?
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, not sustainable. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Did I pound on the desk?
Yes.
So
Nice.
let me continue to argue on their side, just to have you guys shoot it down. When I sell something on eBay is matching buyer and seller. I'm not an eBay employee if I'm a seller. And if I'm a contractor, a plumber, or whatever, and I go on Angie's List and that gets me connected to a job, I'm not an Angie's List employee. And
Correct.
the Uber and Lyft, their argument is we're a platform that we connect drivers to people who want rides, and we're the platform. We're not the taxi service.
Yeah, so they sell themselves. They sell themselves as that, but if you skip too many rides, they kick you off the platform.
Right.
When
you sell something on eBay, Patrick, does eBay determine the price, or do you?
The auction. Well, I guess you do, or the auction does, whichever you pick.
You decide what you're willing to sell it for. And in this case, Uber is setting the price.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very good point.
There's also another point that you should understand. They tell you what quality car you should have. What it should look like. They give you a set of guidelines for how you should be dressed, and also, suggested things to have in there. So they set the terms of how you should work, and you must work your shift. And as Casey said, if you cut out your shift, then after a while, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get any of that.
Yeah.
So if they
that
can
sure
do
sounds
that,
like something an employer does.
Yeah.
Hey, ding ding.
there you go.
I'll take another step back. Ride-sharing apps are good. Could be good. Taxi service sucked. Taxis sucked. They were expensive. They were horrible. They were hard to find. And especially if you didn't live in a dense urban area, maybe they were impossible to find. Maybe you waited hours for one, or you had to call a super shuttle or something 2 weeks in advance. So there's definitely positive aspects to ride sharing. The problem is from the beginning, it's not been priced realistically, and the employees, the contractors, haven't been treated the way they should be treated. If we'd done this right, it would be an unalloyed good thing. I think the problem is we kind of tried to do it badly.